This is going to be another pretty exciting video because we're talking about the Samsung Galaxy S9. So the S9 is actually almost here. If you think about it, it's going to be unveiled in about a month's time. And my last Samsung Galaxy S9 Leaks Rumors episode, this one was actually about a month ago as well. And recently, all the final S9 details have been leaked, so not just the design, but also the full specs, all the camera details, as well as the final features. And speaking of interesting and exciting stuff, I'm actually doing the first Zone of Tech Q&A this Saturday, January the 20th. I've never done a Q&A before, and I really want to make this channel feel a bit more personal and a bit more interactive, so to say. And I think a Q&A would be a great way to start that. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me, just comment down below using the hashtag AskZoneOfTech, or AskZoneOfT basically, and I'll answer as many questions as I can in Saturday's video. But other than that, here's everything you need to know about the upcoming Samsung Galaxy S9. So grab some popcorn or some nuts and enjoy. Okay, so I've talked about the design in some of my previous videos already, but long story short, the S9 is going to look very similar to the Samsung Galaxy S8 from 2017. So we've seen this in quite a few case leaks, we've seen this in quite a few display leaks, and even in a few supposed hands-on leaks. So the top and bottom bezels have been shrunken down a bit from the S8, but they're both still there, so they haven't been removed. And other than that, the fingerprint reader has finally been moved to the middle of the phone on the back from the right. But besides those small design changes, both the S9 and the S9 Plus are almost identical to the S8 and the S8 Plus. Now, when it comes to the actual specs, CPU-wise, we're going to have two versions for the S9. So the international S9 version, this one will come with the Exynos 9810 processor, while the US version will come with a Snapdragon 845 processor. Now, wait, Daniel, what's the actual differences between those two processors? Well, both are actually based on a 10nm process. The Snapdragon 845 comes with 4 high-performance 2.8 GHz cores and 4 low-performance 1.7 GHz cores. And the Exynos 9810, this one comes with 4 high-performance 2.9 GHz cores and 4 low-performance 1.9 GHz cores. So the Exynos 9810, on paper at least, seems to be a tiny bit more powerful than the Snapdragon 845. But besides this, both support OpenGL ES 3.2. The Snapdragon 845 also supports DirectX 12, interesting, versus DirectX 11, and both support 4K video at 60 frames per second, but the Exynos 9810 actually supports 4K video in up to 120 frames per second. Now, the Snapdragon 845 actually supports stills up to 32 megapixels versus 24 megapixels on the Exynos 9810. So as you can see, there's upsides and downsides to both. But overall, they're both very, very similar. Now, Samsung usually tends to optimize their apps and skin, so TouchWiz or Grace UX now, basically, better for Exynos processors rather than Snapdragon, since Samsung develops and manufactures the Exynos processors entirely. So if you can, try and pick the Exynos model. Always try and, I don't know, import one. If you live in the US, import one from Europe. But yeah, the Exynos models are usually a tiny bit better than the Snapdragon when it comes to performance, fluidity, and battery life. So that was the CPU, but what about the RAM? So in terms of the RAM, we've actually had some recent leaks, including this massive one showing the actual box of the Samsung Galaxy S9 with all the specs and details on the back. And this one actually showed us 4 GB of RAM. Now, keep in mind that this was the box for the regular S9 and not the S9 Plus. Other reports have also pointed to the S9 Plus coming with 6 GB of RAM as well, which I believe is definitely going to be the case. I mean, the Note, if you think about it, the Note 8 comes with 6 GB of RAM, so it would be a bit weird for Samsung, not to have the same amount of RAM as on their 2017 flagship, at least, if not more. Especially considering how demanding Samsung's overlay TouchWiz or Grace UX really is. So 6 GB of RAM on the regular S9 and 8 GB of RAM on the S9 Plus is what we need and what I want to see, but this doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately. Okay, so those were the specs. Now, what about the actual camera? I have some pretty interesting updates here as well. So first things first, the S9 Plus will be getting a dual camera module similar to the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, but then the regular S9 will only be getting a single camera module, so another downside of the S9 versus the S9 Plus model. However, we are getting some big improvements when it comes to low light performance. So the aperture is going to be increased from an f1.7 aperture to an f1.5, which on a regular DSLR lens might not seem like much, but considering how small the camera sensor on a smartphone really is, this is going to be a very noticeable improvement in low light. Now, when it comes to the actual sensor size, the resolution is going to remain the same, so at 12 megapixels, but I would always pick better low light performance over more megapixels. Let me know in the comments if you would pick the same or if you would prefer having more megapixels and lower quality, low light shots essentially. Now here's the thing, if you have a 5K monitor, and not a lot of people have a 5K monitor, let me know in the comments if any of you have a 5K iMac, a 5K monitor, or anything that's 5K. TVs, actually no, there's no 5K TV, so monitor or 5K iMac, let me know in the comments how many of you have that. But 5K is basically 8 megapixels. So even on a very high resolution monitor, such as a 5K one, you won't be able to see an image larger than 8 megapixels in size, unless you zoom in, of course. So what I'm saying is that even 12 megapixels for a smartphone camera's resolution is way over what we can currently see on one of the highest end monitors right now, a 5K monitor. And when it comes to the front-facing camera, I have some updates there as well. So from all the leaks and reports that we've seen so far, the front-facing camera seems to be getting an improvement in terms of the aperture size. So it's still going to be an 8 megapixel sensor, so nothing like 12 or anything crazy like that, but with an f1.6 aperture versus f1.7. And because of that, we're still going to get Quad HD video and not 4K video, by the way. 4K video needs an 8.3 megapixel sensor or larger. If you want to do 4K video recording. So if it stays at 8 megapixels, the front-facing camera sensor, then Quad HD is going to be the maximum resolution that you can do. But even Quad HD is awesome to have, because keep in mind, on the iPhone, on pretty much every single iPhone, on pretty much every single new iPhone, you're still limited to 1080p video with the front-facing camera, which is weird because the iPhones come with a 7 megapixel camera. So essentially they can do Quad HD video, but Apple doesn't have this enabled for some reason. Now another big camera improvement is going to be in terms of video. So now with the Snapdragon 845 and the Exynos 9810, the S9 will be able to do finally 4K 60 video, just as the new iPhone 8 and the new iPhone 10. So this means that everything will be twice more fluid, and if you don't know how awesome 4K 60 video is, this is something that you can only find on some very, very high-end and expensive cameras. So seeing this resolution at this high frame rate coming to a smartphone is just incredible. Now, in case you're wondering what's going to happen with that 4K 120 frames per second, well, that's probably not going to be enabled because only the Exynos processor supports that, so Samsung won't be limiting, this feature only to the international models, I'm guessing. So yeah, 4K 60 is what we'll probably see on both the Exynos and the Snapdragon models of the Samsung Galaxy S9. Now, speaking of a high frame rate, Samsung will be adding a super slow motion option to the S9. So we've seen this on the box leak, we've seen this in a lot of reports, so this is more than likely coming to the S9. Most likely up to 1000 frames per second slow motion, which is just incredible. So the iPhone 10, for example, this one can do slow motion up to 240 frames per second in 1080p. The S9 is going to be able to do up to 1000 frames per second in 720p. So a bit lower resolution, but still, if you want to shoot some really crazy slow motion video, the S9 is going to be one of the only options that can do that right now. I mean, you also have the Sony Xperia XZ Premium, which already does 960 frames per second slow motion. So I'm guessing that this is probably going to be limited at about 960. Samsung's probably going to use a similar sensor to what Sony used in the Xperia XZ Premium. Now, moving away from the camera, let's talk about the storage options. So it seems that the 64GB option is going to be the baseline for the S9 and the S9 Plus, just as we had with the S8 and the S8 Plus. But then the microSD card is still going to be there, so that's some good news. And speaking of things which are still going to be present, the headphone jack is still going to be present. So this is a direct blow to Apple or even Google, essentially, who have both removed the headphone jack from their smartphones. Okay, so we've talked about the specs, we've talked about the design, the camera. What about the special features? Anything interesting and unique and cool and new that a Samsung Galaxy S9 is going to come with? Well, there's a few things which I want to talk about. So first things first, we have something which was one of the main missing things on the S8, the S7, the S7 Edge, the S6, pretty much all Samsung smartphones if you think about it. Do you know what that is? A pair of some good speakers. Now, I've actually done a speaker test before between various smartphones, the iPhone 10, the iPhone 8, the Samsung Galaxy S8, the Pixel 2, and so on, including, the S8 Plus. And the S8 Plus has one of the worst speakers on flagship smartphones. So it's actually just a mono speaker on the bottom. It's really, really bad. The sound is like almost muffled all the time, so it's really, really bad. So if you take a look at the leaked box that I showed you before, and also in some other reports as well, there's a note that the Samsung Galaxy S9 is going to come with stereo speakers tuned by AKG. Now, this is probably going to work in the exact same way as it does on the iPhone 7 and newer. So essentially the earpiece is going to be an individual speaker as well, rather than having, two front-facing stereo speakers like something like on the Google Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL, for example. So the sound quality should still be significantly better than before, and I'm okay with that because this is something that we were lacking on Samsung Galaxy phones. And speaking of lacking, something that won't be lacking is Bixby. So Bixby is still going to be there. We still have the dedicated Bixby button on the side, on the left-hand side. You can see this in some of the leaks. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to, disable Bixby again, Bixby 2.0. So this is a feature that I need, killing Bixby. Day one. And then we've also had some reports that the DeX dock, essentially the device, the accessory that lets you turn your S8 into a desktop computer, this one is going to be updated with a second generation. We don't know any details based on that, but hopefully the UI, because that was the main issue, the UI is going to be improved. And then finally, we've also had some leaks regarding the battery size. So there's this company, it's called Anatel, it's a Brazilian mobile regulated company. So they unveiled that the battery size will remain unchanged from the S8 and the S8 Plus, which is quite similar to what other sources have reported. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing because the battery life wasn't that great on the Samsung Galaxy S8. Obviously, it was significantly better on the S8 Plus because it came with a larger battery, but still wasn't amazing. If you compare it with the Pixel 2, that one has an amazing battery life. So the main issue here, honestly, it's not really the battery itself, it's mostly the UI and the overlay and all the bloatware that Samsung adds, such as Bixby, for example, which take a lot of resources. So hopefully this will be updated as well, an improved and not as bloatware TouchWiz or Grace UX. Android 8.0 is rumored to be coming with the S9, by the way. We've also seen some reports that Android 7.1 will be coming with the S9. Now, honestly, the S8 still comes with Android 7.0, so most phones haven't gotten an update to 7.1, not even to mention 8.0 yet. Mine hasn't, mine's unlocked model. So yeah, 8.0 is what I believe should be coming at least, if not even 8.1, honestly, with a Samsung Galaxy S9. Okay, so when is the S9 going to launch? Well, Evan Blass, he's one of the most well-known leakers and one of the most trusted leakers. He actually pointed towards a February the 26th launch event, and a 1st of March pre-order and a 16th of March release. So essentially 1 month earlier than the Samsung Galaxy S8's release last year, which was also confirmed, by the way, by multiple sources. So yeah, essentially we'll be seeing the Samsung Galaxy S9 unveiled in about a month's time, which is, wow, that was pretty quick. Okay, so in the end, the S9 is basically an S8S with a better camera, improved performance, and some very, very small design changes such as thinner bezels and a repositioned fingerprint sensor on the back. So if you already have an S8, honestly, there's no point in getting an S9 really. But if you have something older, such as an S7 Edge or an S6 or even older, it's actually a pretty good upgrade getting an S8S essentially. So yeah, this was pretty much it for this video. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more Leaks Rumors episodes and more in-depth tech videos like this one. And also let me know in the comments, what do you personally think about the S9? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's not worth it? Are you going to upgrade if you have something like an S8 or not? And then other than that, don't forget about the Q&A, the Zone of Tech, the Ask Zone of Tech Q&A. So leave a comment down below with the hashtag AskZoneOfTech, ZOT, if you have any questions you want to ask me. And the video goes live on Saturday, the 20th of January. So yeah, that's pretty much it. For this video, if you have enjoyed it, let me know. I'm Daniel. See you guys in my next one. Zone of Tech, signing out. Cheers.